A dog refuses to give birth, but when the vet realizes why, he screams, "Call 911 now!" At first it looks like a routine emergency, a mother dog in distress. But something is wrong. The animal won't lie down, won't push. She keeps staring at the dark corner of the room, as if warning of something no one else can see. Then, suddenly, the vet's face drains of color. What he discovers hidden in that moment turns a simple night at the clinic into a fight for survival. Because this isn't just about one dog giving birth. It's about a dangerous secret someone never wanted exposed. Every second counts. Lives are on the line. And as the truth begins to surface, one chilling question remains. What was this dog really trying to warn them about? And who will pay the price if no one listens? I'd love to know. Where are you watching from? Type it down below, and while you're here, subscribe so you'll always catch the next story. Thunder cracked overhead as rain pelted against the windows of Pine Valley Veterinary Clinic. Greer Langford pushed her chestnut-brown hair back from her face and guided the pregnant German Shepherd through the front doors. The large dog's sides heaved with contractions, but something wasn't right. Instead of settling down to deliver her puppies, Lulu remained standing, her ears pricked forward and her attention fixed on the supply closet at the back of the clinic. "Come on, girl," Greer coaxed gently, trying to lead the dog toward the examination room. "Let's get you comfortable." But Lulu planted her feet firmly on the linoleum floor, refusing to budge. Another flash of lightning illuminated the darkened clinic, followed by a loud crack of thunder that made the windows rattle. Dr. Calder Voss hurried in, pushing an ultrasound machine. His glasses were slightly fogged from the rain, and he wiped them quickly with the edge of his white coat. "How's our patient doing?" he asked, glancing at Lulu's distended belly. "She won't lie down," Greer explained, her grey eyes reflecting her concern. "I've never seen a dog in labor act like this before." She keeps staring at the supply closet and back rooms. Calder frowned, wheeling the machine closer. "Let's take a look at those puppies. Maybe there's a problem with the positioning." But as he approached with the ultrasound wand, Lulu backed away, letting out a sharp bark. Her focus remained laser-locked on the back of the clinic. Greer felt a familiar tingle at the base of her neck, the same sensation she used to get during her EMT days when something was seriously wrong at a scene. Her years of emergency response had taught her to trust those instincts. "Dr. Voss," she said slowly, "I don't think this is just about the labor. Something's bothering her." The vet tech watched as Lulu's nostrils flared, testing the air. The dog's behavior triggered memories of her EMT training, specifically sessions about reading environmental warnings and responding to unseen dangers. German Shepherds were known for their intelligence and training capabilities. This wasn't normal birthing behavior. Another contraction rippled through Lulu's body, but instead of dropping to deliver, she whined and pulled harder toward the back room. The storm outside intensified, rain drumming against the roof like hundreds of impatient fingers. "She's fighting her natural instincts," Greer observed, her voice tight with growing concern. A dog this far into labor should be focused on nothing but delivering those puppies. Something's overriding even her biological imperatives. Dr. Voss ran a hand through his graying hair, his tired eyes showing his uncertainty. "What are you suggesting, Greer?" "I think we need to check out what's back there," she said firmly. "In my experience, when your gut and an animal are both telling you something's wrong, you listen." The vet hesitated, adjusting his glasses in a nervous gesture. "We have a dog in active labor. We need to focus on." He was cut off by another urgent bark from Lulu, who was now pulling so hard against her leash that Greer had to brace herself to hold on. The dog's ears were fully erect, her posture alert despite her heavily pregnant condition. Thunder boomed overhead, and the lights flickered ominously. In that brief moment of darkness, Greer caught a whiff of something odd, something that seemed out of place in a veterinary clinic. Her EMT training kicked in again, cataloguing details: unusual smell, agitated animal, storm interference with power systems. "Dr. Voss," she said, her voice taking on the calm but authoritative tone she'd used in crisis situations. "This dog is trying to tell us something. She's trained. Look at her posture, her focus. This isn't random anxiety. She's alerting to something." Calder looked between his vet tech and the German shepherd, clearly torn between protocol and the mounting evidence that something was amiss. "The puppies are actually safer if we figure out what's wrong," Greer insisted. "Lulu's fighting her labor for a reason. Whatever's causing this behavior is important enough to override her maternal instincts." The storm's intensity seemed to mirror the growing tension in the clinic. Rain lashed against the windows with renewed fury, and the wind howled through any small gap it could find. The emergency lights cast strange shadows on the walls, adding to the unsettling atmosphere. Lulu let out another bark, this one different from before, sharper, more insistent. Her training as an EMT had taught Greer to recognize different types of urgency, and this one sent chills down her spine. The dog wasn't just anxious, she was trying to warn them. "Look at her body language," Greer pointed out. "The way she's positioning herself between us and that direction? She's not just interested in something, she's trying to protect us from it." Dr. Voss began to look more concerned, his initial skepticism giving way to worry. "I've never seen anything quite like this in 20 years of practice," he admitted, pushing his glasses up his nose. "Even difficult births don't present quite like this." Another contraction seized Lulu, and Greer could see the immense effort it took for the dog to remain standing. Sweat darkened her sable fur, but still she maintained her alert posture, her eyes never leaving the back area of the clinic. "We need to listen to her," Greer insisted, her voice soft but firm. "I've seen enough emergency situations to know when something's really wrong. This isn't just a difficult labor, this is a warning." The lights flickered again, longer this time, and in the brief darkness, Lulu's whine took on an almost desperate quality. When the power stabilized, Greer noticed the dog's nose working overtime, sampling the air with increasing agitation. "Dogs have abilities we don't," she continued, her mind racing through possibilities. "Their sense of smell, their instincts, they can detect things we might miss. And this dog, in particular, seems trained. Look at how focused she is, how deliberate her actions are despite being in labor." Dr. Voss moved closer to Lulu, studying her with new eyes. "You think she's some kind of working dog?" "Almost certainly." Greer nodded. "The way she's alerting, the precision of her focus, she's had professional training. And whatever she's detecting is important enough to make her delay giving birth." Another rumble of thunder shook the building, and this time the lights didn't just flicker, they dimmed to a sickly yellow. The backup generator hummed to life somewhere in the building, its drone adding to the cacophony of the storm. Lulu's behavior became even more intense. She pulled harder on the leash, her powerful body straining forward despite her condition. Her barks took on a different pattern. 3 sharp barks, a pause, then 3 more. "That's a trained alert pattern," Greer said, her emergency response instincts screaming now. "Dr. Voss, this isn't just unusual behavior anymore. This is an active warning from a trained service dog." The vet's face had grown pale in the dim light. "But warning us about what?" Before Greer could respond, another contraction hit Lulu. The dog's legs trembled with the effort of remaining standing, but still she refused to lie down. Sweat soaked through her fur, and her sides heaved with the dual effort of fighting labor and maintaining her alert posture. "Whatever it is," Greer said, her voice tight with concern, "it's serious enough that she's willing to risk her puppies to warn us. No mother would do that unless the danger was immediate and severe." The storm seemed to gather itself for another assault on the clinic, wind and rain battering the windows with renewed fury. In that moment, Greer felt as though the weather itself was trying to tell them something, trying to keep them inside while also warning them of danger. Lulu's next bark carried a note of pure urgency that made both humans jump. The dog's eyes were wide, her body trembling not just with contractions now, but with the effort of trying to communicate something vital to these humans who seemed so slow to understand. We need to check the back rooms, Greer said firmly, her training taking over. Now, before whatever she's warning us about gets worse. Dr. Voss looked at the ultrasound machine, then back at Lulu. But the puppies will be at even greater risk if we ignore this warning, Greer finished. Trust me, Doctor. Voss, trust her. Something is very wrong here, and we need to find out what it is before it's too late. The German shepherd's attention never wavered from the back of the clinic, her body tense with purpose, despite the waves of contractions that should have driven her to the floor. The storm raged outside, but inside, an even more powerful tension was building, one that demanded immediate attention. Greer could feel it in her bones, the same way she used to feel it at accident scenes or disaster sites. That moment when seconds counted and lives hung in the balance. Whatever Lulu was trying to tell them, it couldn't wait, not even for the birth of her puppies. The lights flickered once more, and in that moment, Lulu's whine carried a note of such urgent warning that it made the hair on the back of Greer's neck stand up. Something was very wrong in the clinic, and this brave mother was putting herself through agony to alert them. Dr. Voss wheeled the ultrasound machine closer to Lulu, its wheels squeaking against the linoleum floor. The German shepherd's ears immediately flattened against her head, and her body went rigid. As he reached for the probe, Lulu let out a bark that was more like a roar, backing away with such force that Greer had to brace herself to hold the leash. "Whoa, girl, easy there," Greer soothed, though her own heart was racing. Something about Lulu's reaction seemed far beyond normal fear or stress. The dog's eyes were laser-focused, her entire body trembling not with fear, but with urgent purpose. Dr. Voss frowned, adjusting his glasses. "I've seen nervous mothers before, but this is different." He took another step forward with the ultrasound probe, and Lulu's reaction became even more intense. She lunged toward the supply closet, nearly pulling Greer off her feet. That's when Greer heard it, a faint but distinct ticking sound coming from the direction of the water heater. Her EMT training kicked in like a switch being flipped, and every sense went on high alert. The ticking was rhythmic, mechanical, and absolutely shouldn't have been there. She took a deep breath, and that's when the second warning sign hit her, a slight burning sensation in her eyes. Her throat tightened almost imperceptibly. Years of emergency response experience came flooding back, and with it, a chilling realization. "Dr. Voss," she said, keeping her voice deliberately calm. "Step away from that machine. Now." The veterinarian looked up, startled by her tone. "What's wrong?" "The pilot light," Greer said, her mind racing through emergency protocols. "I think it's out, and if I'm right, gas has been pooling in here." The pieces fell into place with terrifying clarity. Lulu's behavior, the ticking sound, the slight burning in her eyes. The dog wasn't being difficult, she was trying to save their lives. Dr. Voss's face went pale. "But the ultrasound could spark an explosion," Greer finished, her voice tight with urgency. "Cut the power." "Now." The vet hesitated for a fraction of a second, then lunged for the machine's power cord. Lulu barked again, 3 sharp warnings that seemed to echo through the clinic. The storm outside had created the perfect conditions for disaster. The pressure changes could have easily affected the pilot light, and with the building's old ventilation system. "The main power," Greer called out, already moving toward the circuit breaker box. "We need to cut everything." Her hands were steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. This was familiar territory: crisis management, quick decisions, lives in the balance. Lulu continued pulling toward the supply closet with single-minded determination. The dog's training was evident now. She wasn't just reacting to danger, she was actively trying to lead them away from it. Despite being in active labor, she was fighting through her contractions to warn them. The burning sensation in Greer's eyes was getting stronger, and she could taste something metallic at the back of her throat. They had minutes, maybe less. The gas had been accumulating who knew how long, and with the storm's electrical interference. Dr. Voss had finally caught up to the gravity of the situation. His professional composure cracked as understanding dawned in his eyes. This wasn't just a difficult patient or a medical emergency. This was life or death. "Oh, God!" he breathed. Then his voice rose to a shout that carried over the storm's rumble. "Call 911 now!" The urgency in his voice matched the situation perfectly. Greer was already pulling out her phone, her fingers moving automatically to dial. Lulu's barking had taken on an almost frantic quality, but she maintained her disciplined alert pattern. 3 sharp barks, pause, repeat. The dog's training was fighting with her maternal instincts, creating a heartbreaking display of dedication and distress. "We need to evacuate," Greer said, even as she waited for the emergency line to connect. "The gas will only keep building up." She could see Dr. Voss wavering, looking at their patient. "Lulu will come with us. We'll help her, but we have to get out first." The storm chose that moment to unleash another thunderous boom, and the lights flickered ominously. Each flash could be the one that ignited the gas. Every second they stayed in the building was another roll of deadly dice. Lulu's whine cut through the tension, a sound of pure distress mixed with unwavering determination. Despite everything, the pain of her labor, the fear she must have been feeling, she stayed focused on her mission. The dog's courage struck Greer as both inspiring and heartbreaking. 911, what's your emergency?" The operator's voice came through, clear and professional. "This is Greer Langford at Riverside Veterinary Clinic." She responded, her EMT training taking over. "We have a confirmed gas leak with potential electrical hazards. Building needs immediate evacuation and emergency response." She rattled off the address with practiced efficiency. Dr. Voss was already moving, gathering essential supplies with shaking hands. The reality of the situation had transformed him from a hesitant professional into a man facing a clear and present danger. His movements were quick but uncoordinated, fear finally breaking through his careful composure. The operator was asking more questions, but Greer's attention was split between the phone and Lulu. The German Shepherd's contractions were coming closer together now, visible waves of tension running through her powerful body. Yet still she maintained her alert posture, refusing to give in to the natural urges of labor. "How long until units arrive?" Greer asked, already calculating evacuation routes in her head. The storm complicated everything. Roads might be blocked, response times would be slower, and the weather itself posed additional risks. "Units are being dispatched now," the operator assured her. "Fire department and gas company are en route. Can you safely evacuate the building?" "Yes," Greer confirmed, though her mind was racing through complications. Moving Lulu in her condition wouldn't be easy, but staying wasn't an option. The gas concentration was definitely increasing. She could feel it in her throat now, and her eyes were stinging more intensely. Dr. Voss had managed to gather some basic medical supplies into a bag. "What about the other animals?" he asked, his voice tight with concern. The clinic had several overnight patients in the recovery ward. "We'll need help getting them all out," Greer acknowledged. "But first, we have to—" Lulu's bark cut her off. Sharper this time, more insistent. The dog's training was literally fighting against her body's demands, and Greer could see the toll it was taking. Sweat had soaked through her fur, and her legs were trembling with the effort of staying upright. "Sir," the operator's voice came through the phone. "Are there any other occupants in the building?" 3 overnight patients in the recovery ward," Greer reported, already moving toward the exit while keeping tension on Lulu's leash. "We'll need assistance evacuating them safely." Dr. Voss had found his focus now, professional training finally overcoming his initial panic. "I'll start getting the carriers ready," he said, heading toward the recovery ward with purpose. The ticking from the water heater seemed louder now, though Greer knew it was probably her heightened awareness making it seem so. Every sound, the storm outside, the hum of electrical equipment, Lulu's labored breathing, seemed to carry extra weight, extra meaning. "Emergency units are approximately 5 minutes out," the operator informed them. "Please proceed with evacuation and maintain a safe distance from the building once outside." Greer acknowledged the instruction, her mind already mapping out their next steps. The storm was still raging outside, but right now the weather was the least of their concerns. The real danger was invisible, but growing with every passing second. Lulu let out another series of warning barks, her body tense with purpose despite the obvious pain she was in. The dog's dedication to her training, even in these extreme circumstances, was remarkable. She was fighting against every maternal instinct, every natural urge to keep doing her job. "Come on, girl," Greer encouraged, gently guiding the German shepherd toward the exit. "You've done your job. You've warned us. Now let's get you somewhere safe." The lights flickered again, and Greer's heart jumped into her throat. Every electrical spark was a potential trigger now. They needed to move quickly but carefully. Panic would only make things worse. Dr. Voss reappeared with a cat carrier in each hand. "The carriers are ready," he called out, his voice strained but controlled. "But moving them in this weather?" "We don't have a choice," Greer replied, still keeping the phone line open. "Every minute we stay increases the risk." Lulu's next contraction was strong enough to make her legs buckle slightly, but still she maintained her alert posture. The dog's eyes were fixed on the humans, watching their every move as if making sure they understood the danger she'd been trying to communicate. Through the phone, Greer could hear the operator coordinating with emergency services, updating them on the situation. The minutes seemed to stretch as they waited for help to arrive, each second marked by the continuing tick of the water heater and the relentless pounding of the storm. The gas smell was becoming more noticeable now, even to untrained senses. Dr. Voss's face showed he'd detected it too, his expression tightening with renewed urgency. The invisible threat was making itself known, adding pressure to every moment, every decision. "Everyone out! Now!" Greer's voice cut through the mounting tension as she grabbed Lulu's leash. The German shepherd's muscles were taut under her fingers, but the dog moved willingly now, as if her mission to alert them had been accomplished. Dr. Calder-Voss's face had gone pale as paper. "The other animals," he started, looking back toward the kennels. "No time." Greer yanked him toward the front door by his lab coat sleeve. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she thought of all the beloved pets inside, but her EMT training screamed that seconds mattered now. "We'll call for help once we're safe." Sarah, the receptionist, was already holding the door open, her usually perfect blonde hair wind-blown from the storm still raging outside. Rain pelted them as they burst out into the parking lot. Thunder cracked overhead, but Greer barely noticed it now. "Everyone get to the far end of the lot," she ordered, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd handled emergencies before. She counted heads as they moved. Dr. Voss, Sarah, the two vet assistants from the back room, and herself, plus Lulu. They'd barely made it 20 steps when a deafening boom shattered the night. The force of it knocked them forward, and Greer instinctively threw herself over Lulu's body, shielding the pregnant dog. Heat bloomed behind them as orange light painted the wet pavement. When Greer looked back, flames were already visible through the clinic's windows, licking up the walls of the back corridor where the water heater had been. Black smoke began to curl from under the eaves. "Oh my God," Sarah whispered, her hands pressed to her mouth. "All those animals." The wail of approaching sirens cut through the storm's rumble. Greer kept one hand buried in Lulu's fur, feeling the dog's rapid breathing. The German shepherd's eyes were fixed on the burning building, but she remained surprisingly calm despite the chaos. 3 fire trucks rounded the corner, their red lights strobing through the rain. They pulled up with practiced precision, and firefighters poured out, moving with the coordinated efficiency of a well-trained team. A tall, broad-shouldered man in a captain's uniform strode toward their huddled group. Despite the situation, Greer couldn't help noticing his commanding presence. His weathered face was all business as he approached. "Captain Harlan Brook," he introduced himself quickly. "Is everyone out?" 5 staff members accounted for," Greer reported crisply, falling into her old emergency response patterns. "But we have animals inside." We'll get them, he assured her, already turning to direct his team. Johnson, Martinez, take the east entrance. Collins, with me through the front. Full gear, we've got confirmed gas exposure. As the firefighters moved in, Greer felt Lulu sink heavily against her leg. Looking down, she saw the dog's sides heaving in a different rhythm now. The contractions are starting again, she announced, dropping to her knees beside Lulu. The German shepherd's earlier refusal to deliver suddenly made perfect sense. She knew. Greer murmured, wonder mixing with professional admiration. She wasn't just being difficult, she was trained for this. Dr. Voss crouched beside them, his face showing the same dawning realization. Gas detection, he said. I've heard of dogs trained to detect gas leaks, but I've never seen one in action. She must have picked up the scent and refused to lie down until we understood the danger. Greer scratched behind Lulu's ears as another contraction rippled through the dog's body. You saved our lives, girl, she whispered. Now let's get these puppies safely delivered. Captain Brooke jogged back to them, his face streaked with soot, but his eyes bright. We've got the fire contained to the back corridor, he reported, and my team is bringing out the animals now. All carriers and cages are being moved to the dental office next door. They've opened their waiting room for temporary shelter. Relief flooded through Greer. She looked up at him gratefully, rain streaming down her face. Thank you, she said simply. His eyes softened as he took in the scene, Greer kneeling beside the laboring dog, her hands gentle but confident as she checked Lulu's progress. Do you need anything for her? He asked. Some blankets would help, she replied. And if we could get under some kind of shelter. Before she could finish, Brooke was shrugging out of his turnout coat. He held it over Lulu like a canopy, shielding her from the rain. One of his firefighters quickly brought over some blankets from their truck's emergency kit. As Greer helped Lulu settle onto the makeshift bed, she couldn't help but marvel at the chain of events. This dog, this brilliant, brave dog, had not only detected the gas leak, but had also deliberately delayed her labor to warn them. The near explosion had revealed Lulu's true nature. She wasn't just a pregnant patient, but a highly trained professional in her own right. The first puppy arrived just as the last of the clinic's animal patients was being safely evacuated. Lulu remained calm and focused through her labor, as if the completion of her warning mission had allowed her to finally attend to her own needs. Greer stayed by her side, Captain Brooke still holding his coat over them, while Dr. Voss helped monitor the delivery. One by one, 6 healthy puppies were born under the storm-dark sky, their first breaths taken in the company of heroes, both human and canine. The rain gradually eased to a gentle patter, and the last flames were extinguished inside the clinic. The air smelled of wet asphalt and smoke, but also of new life and hope. Greer sat back on her heels, watching Lulu tend to her puppies with gentle efficiency. The German shepherd looked up at her with those intelligent eyes, and Greer saw something there she hadn't noticed before, a quiet pride, a sense of duty fulfilled. This dog had performed her trained task perfectly, protecting not only her unborn puppies, but every life in that building. I've never seen anything like this, Captain Brooke said quietly, still standing guard with his coat. In all my years of service, I've never seen a dog delay labor to sound a warning. She must have had incredible training, Greer agreed, running her hand along Lulu's flank. This wasn't just maternal instinct, this was deliberate action based on specific skills. Someone invested a lot of time in teaching her to detect gas leaks. Dr. Voss nodded thoughtfully as he checked each puppy. Which raises the question, who trained her? And how did she end up pregnant and alone, brought in as a stray? These questions hung in the air, adding another layer of mystery to the night's events. But for now, Greer focused on the immediate miracle before her. 6 squirming puppies, a proud mother, and a clinic full of animals saved because one dog refused to ignore her training, even in the midst of labor. The near disaster had revealed something extraordinary. Lulu wasn't just another patient passing through their clinic. She was a highly trained professional who had chosen to put her duty above her own immediate needs. As Greer watched her now, tenderly cleaning her puppies while still maintaining an alert awareness of her surroundings, she knew this was just the beginning of Lulu's story. The morning sun cast long shadows across the charred remains of the veterinary clinic. Greer stood in the parking lot, her eyes burning from lack of sleep, watching firefighters conduct their final sweep of the building. The acrid smell of smoke still hung heavy in the air, a constant reminder of how close they'd come to disaster. A sleek black Mercedes pulled into the lot, tires crunching over broken glass. The car's door swung open, and Conrad Blaine emerged, his expensive suit a stark contrast to the destruction around him. Behind him, two men with professional cameras hustled to keep up, their equipment already trained on the building. "This is exactly what happens when proper safety protocols aren't followed," Blaine announced loudly, his voice pitched to Carrie. He straightened his silk tie, making sure the cameras caught his concerned expression. "Simple negligence could have cost lives." Greer felt her jaw clench. She'd heard about Conrad Blaine, the developer who owned half the commercial property in town, but this was her first time seeing him in person. Everything about him radiated calculated authority, from his perfectly coiffed silver hair to his Italian leather shoes. Dr. Calder Voss hurried forward, his usual confident stride replaced by an anxious shuffle. "Mr. Blaine, I can explain." "Explain." Blaine's voice dripped with false concern. "Doctor, there's nothing to explain. The facts speak for themselves. A gas leak. In my building. This is a liability nightmare." He gestured to the cameras, which continued rolling. "The public needs to know about these dangerous conditions." Greer stepped forward, unable to stay silent. "If you're so concerned about safety, when was the last time you had the gas lines inspected?" Blaine's practiced smile didn't waver, but his eyes turned cold. "And you are?" "Greer Langford. I'm the one who recognized the gas leak before it could kill anyone." "Ah, yes, the veterinary technician." He dismissed her with a wave of his hand. "Dr. Voss, we need to discuss the future of this establishment. Privately." Calder glanced nervously between Blaine and Greer. "Of course. We can use my office. What's left of it." As they walked toward the building entrance, where fire officials had cleared a path, two men in suits emerged from a second vehicle. They carried briefcases and wore expressions that meant business. "Those would be my lawyers," Blaine announced. "Standard procedure in situations like this. We'll need statements from everyone involved, naturally, and of course the appropriate non-disclosure agreements." Greer watched as they disappeared inside, her heart sinking. Through the window, she could see Blaine gesturing expansively, probably laying out his vision for whatever luxury development he planned to replace the clinic with. 20 minutes later, Calder emerged looking defeated. The lawyers approached Greer, holding out a thick document. "Mr. Blaine requires all employees to sign this NDA before making any public statements about last night's events," one of them stated flatly. Greer took the document, scanning the first page. Her eyes widened at the restrictive language. "This says I can't discuss anything about the incident with anyone, not even investigators or safety inspectors." "That's correct. It's a standard agreement to protect all parties involved." "Protect all parties?" Greer's voice rose. "Or just protect Mr. Blaine?" "Number, I won't sign this." The lawyer's expression hardened. "Then I'm afraid we have no choice but to recommend your immediate suspension, pending review." Calder stepped forward, wringing his hands. "Greer, please, just sign it. We can work this out." "Work what out?" She turned to face him. "The fact that our landlord wants to silence us about a gas leak that nearly killed us, that he showed up with cameras before the ashes were even cold. This isn't right, Doctor. Voss, and you know it." "I don't have a choice," Calder whispered. "He's threatening to terminate our lease, cite us for violations." "The clinic. I could lose everything." Blaine emerged from the building, flanked by his camera crew. I'm afraid we have no choice but to temporarily close the facility pending a full investigation. Public safety must come first." He paused, making sure the cameras caught his concerned expression. "Of course I'm prepared to make, Doctor." "Voss, a very generous offer for an early lease termination. This location would be perfect for my new wellness center development." Greer looked between the two men, Blaine radiating smug confidence, Calder practically shrinking into himself, and made her decision. She handed the unsigned NDA back to the lawyer. "I won't be part of this cover-up," she stated firmly. "Suspend me if you have to." "Consider it done," Blaine said smoothly. "Dr. Voss, I trust you'll handle the paperwork, and do remember our discussion about the lease terms." Greer turned on her heel, anger fueling every step as she walked to her car. Behind her, she could hear Blaine continuing his performance for the cameras, painting himself as the concerned property owner protecting public safety. She yanked her car door open, then paused, taking one last look at the clinic where she'd worked for the past 3 years. The building was still standing, but smoke damage stained the walls black around the windows. Yellow caution tape fluttered in the breeze. "This isn't over," she muttered, sliding behind the wheel. Her hands gripped the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. She might be suspended, but that didn't mean she was giving up. Something about this whole situation felt wrong, and she was going to figure out what it was, with or without help from Dr. Voss. Fire officials were already starting to seal off the building, placing "closed pending investigation" signs on all the doors. Blaine stood watching with an air of satisfaction, like a king surveying his domain. He caught Greer's eye as she started her car, his smile never reaching his eyes. The morning after her suspension, Greer sat in her home office, staring at her computer screen. Her veterinary credentials might be temporarily suspended, but that didn't stop her from accessing the pet microchip database. With trembling fingers, she typed in Lulu's chip number, which she had carefully noted during the chaos of the previous night. The database took a few seconds to respond, each moment stretching like taffy. Finally, the information populated on her screen, and Greer leaned forward, eyes scanning the details eagerly. "Owner June Whitaker," she read aloud, her voice barely a whisper. "Licensed volunteer handler with Mountain Ridge Search and Rescue." There was a phone number listed. Greer reached for her cell phone, then hesitated. What if she was wrong about all of this? What if she was just seeing conspiracies where there were none? But then she remembered Blaine's smug face, the pressure to sign that NDA, and her fingers were already dialing before she could second-guess herself again. The phone rang 3 times before a woman answered, her voice warm but cautious. "Hello? Is this June Whitaker?" Greer asked, suddenly nervous. "Yes, who's calling?" "My name is Greer Langford. I'm a vet tech at Valley View Animal Clinic. Or I was until yesterday. I'm calling about your dog, Lulu." There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. "You've seen Lulu? Is she all right? She was stolen from my yard 4 days ago. I've been searching everywhere." Greer's heart began to race. She's alive and safe. Actually, she's in labor. But Mrs. Whitaker dash. "June, please. June, there's something else you should know. Last night, Lulu helped us discover a gas leak at the clinic. She wouldn't stop alerting to our supply closet, and if she hadn't—" Greer's voice trailed off as she remembered how close they'd all come to disaster. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When June spoke again, her voice was tight with emotion. "That's my girl. That's exactly what she's trained for. I'm a volunteer handler with the search and rescue team, and Lulu is certified in hazard detection, especially gas leaks. Where is she now?" "She's at my house. After the incident, I couldn't leave her at the clinic, especially since they're closing it pending investigation. Could you come here? Text me your address. I'll be there in 30 minutes. True to her word, exactly 30 minutes later, a weathered pickup truck pulled into Greer's driveway. June Whitaker stepped out, her lean frame radiating nervous energy. She was dressed simply in jeans and a faded search and rescue t-shirt, her silver-streaked hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. The moment June stepped through Greer's front door, Lulu's head shot up from where she lay with her puppies. Her tail began wagging furiously, and she would have bounded up if not for her nursing duties. "Oh, my sweet girl," June whispered, dropping to her knees beside the dog bed. Lulu whined and pressed her head into June's hands, her whole body wiggling with joy. "I've been so worried about you." Greer watched the reunion with a lump in her throat, but as touching as it was, they had serious matters to discuss. "June, can you tell me what happened? How was Lulu stolen?" June's face darkened as she stroked Lulu's head. 4 days ago, I came home from work to find my back gate broken open and Lulu gone. At first, I thought she might have gotten loose, but then I found this in my mailbox." She pulled a crumpled paper from her pocket and handed it to Greer. The note was typed. No signature. "Keep your nose out of other people's business if you want to see your dog again. I've been documenting safety violations at several construction sites." June explained, her voice hard. "Specifically, properties being developed by Conrad Blaine. Cutting corners, using substandard materials, bribing inspectors to look the other way. Lulu's been helping me. Her nose can detect gas leaks and other hazards that might not be visible to the naked eye." Greer felt a chill run down her spine. "The gas leak at the clinic. You think it wasn't an accident?" June's eyes met hers, steady and serious. "I think Blaine saw an opportunity to get rid of a clinic that was taking up valuable real estate, and he took it. The fact that Lulu ended up there, that might have been chance, or maybe someone got sloppy with wherever they were keeping her. But that leak? No way that was an accident. He showed up this morning with cameras and lawyers," Greer said slowly. "Tried to force everyone to sign NDAS. When I refused, he had me suspended." "That's his pattern?" June nodded. "Intimidation, legal pressure, whatever it takes to keep people quiet. I've been gathering evidence for months, but it's been hard to prove anything concrete until now." "What do you mean?" "Think about it. Lulu is a certified hazard detection dog. Her alert at the clinic, combined with the evidence of the gas leak, that's documented proof of tampering, especially since she was stolen just days before this happened." June's eyes gleamed. "We might finally have enough to bring him down." Greer sank into a chair, the full weight of the situation hitting her. "So now we're both holding evidence against a man who's already shown he's willing to do whatever it takes to protect himself." "Welcome to the fight," June said grimly. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" Looking at Lulu, contentedly nursing her puppies while still maintaining her protective alertness, Greer felt her resolve strengthen. This wasn't just about her job anymore. This was about stopping someone who was willing to risk lives for profit. "I want to help," she said firmly, "whatever it takes to expose what Blaine's doing. But we need to be smart about this. He's already watching me, and if he finds out I've connected with you—" June nodded, understanding the unspoken concern. "We'll need to be careful. I have some contacts, people who've been helping me gather evidence, and now we have something concrete to take to the authorities. But first, we need to make sure Lulu and her puppies are safe. Blaine's already shown he'll target her to get to me." "They can stay here," Greer offered immediately. "I'm suspended anyway, so I'll be home to watch them. And my address isn't connected to the clinic records." "Thank you." June's voice was thick with emotion as she watched Lulu with her puppies. "I hate to be separated from her again, but it's safer this way for now, at least until we can make our move." Greer looked between June and Lulu, seeing the strong bond between handler and dog. In just 24 hours, her life had completely upended, from respected vet tech to suspended whistleblower, from caring for a pregnant dog to harboring evidence against a powerful man. But looking at Lulu, who had risked everything to alert them to danger even while in labor, she knew she was doing the right thing. "So," Greer said, squaring her shoulders, "where do we start?" June pulled out her phone, scrolling through files. "I have documentation of at least 3 other properties where Lulu detected gas leaks that were later covered up. Pictures, dates, locations. combined with what happened at the clinic. And I have the medical records from last night, Greer added. Plus, I'm pretty sure the fire department's investigation will show evidence of tampering. Good, June nodded. We'll need all of it. But we have to move carefully. Blaine has people everywhere. Building inspectors, local officials, even some cops. We need to make sure we take this to someone we can trust. Greer felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. She was now holding evidence that could bring down one of the most powerful men in town. One wrong move could put not just her, but June and Lulu in danger. Yet looking at the determined set of June's jaw and the steady gaze of Lulu's eyes, she knew she couldn't back down. They spent the next hour going through June's documentation, building a timeline of Blaine's activities and the pattern of safety violations. The more Greer learned, the more her anger grew. This wasn't just about one gas leak or one clinic. This was about a systematic disregard for human life in the pursuit of profit. The steady patter of rain against Harlan's farmhouse windows created a soothing backdrop as Greer watched Lulu settle into the makeshift whelping box they'd prepared in the cozy living room. The old wooden floors creaked softly as June paced nearby, her worried eyes never leaving her beloved dog. She's doing great, Greer assured, checking Lulu's vital signs for the 100th time. Everything's progressing normally now that she's somewhere safe and quiet. Harlan appeared in the doorway, his broad shoulders filling the frame as he carried in more clean towels. Found these in the linen closet. My grandmother stored everything imaginable up there. Thanks, Greer said softly, accepting the towels. Their fingers brushed briefly, sending a flutter through her chest that she quickly pushed aside. Now wasn't the time for such thoughts. Dr. Calder-Voss sat at the ancient kitchen table, surrounded by stacks of papers and his laptop. These inspection records are concerning, he said, removing his glasses to rub his tired eyes. There's a clear pattern of violations being noted, then mysteriously cleared without proper follow-up. June nodded grimly. That's what I've been trying to prove for months. Blaine's got inspectors in his pocket, signing off on repairs that were never actually made. The four of them had gathered at Harlan's family farmhouse, well outside town limits, to coordinate their efforts while providing Lulu a safe place to deliver her puppies. The old house, with its creaking floorboards and faded wallpaper, felt like a fortress against the corruption they were fighting. I've got incident reports from 3 different properties, Harlan added, spreading out files on the coffee table. Gas leaks, electrical fires, structural issues, all blamed on tenant negligence or unavoidable accidents. His jaw tightened. My own father signed off on some of these as fire marshal. Greer could hear the pain in his voice. Discovering his father's complicity in Blaine's schemes had hit him hard, but it had also strengthened his resolve to expose the truth. A soft whimper from Lulu drew everyone's attention. The German shepherd's contractions were getting stronger, more frequent. June moved to her dog's side, stroking her head gently. That's it, girl, she murmured. You're doing so well. Over the next few hours, they took turns, some watching over Lulu while others sorted through documents, building their case piece by piece. Calder's medical records from the clinic, June's documentation of Lulu's alerts at other properties, Harlan's fire department reports, tenant complaints that had mysteriously vanished from official records. As the evening wore on, Lulu's labor progressed steadily. Greer stayed close, monitoring each phase with professional calm, while inside her heart raced with every tiny development. The first puppy arrived just after midnight, a healthy male with his mother's sable coloring. By dawn, 5 more had joined him, each perfect and squeaking. 6 beautiful puppies, Greer announced, doing one final check of the newborns. 3 boys, 3 girls. They're all strong and nursing well. June wiped tears from her eyes as she watched Lulu tenderly cleaning her babies. She's such a good girl, even with everything she's been through. Harlan brought coffee for everyone, the rich aroma filling the room. You all should get some rest. I'll take first watch. I'll stay up too, Greer offered, accepting a steaming mug. I want to monitor the puppies for another hour at least. As the others retreated to guest rooms upstairs, Greer found herself alone with Harlan and the new family. The rain had stopped, leaving a peaceful stillness broken only by tiny puppy sounds and Lulu's contented sighs. "You're good at this," Harlan said quietly, watching her gentle examination of each puppy. "Not just the medical stuff, but keeping everyone calm. Focused." Greer smiled tiredly. Lots of practice handling four-legged and two-legged patients in crisis, though usually not while trying to expose criminal conspiracies. She reached to adjust Lulu's blanket and noticed something odd about the dog's ID tag. In the soft lamplight, one of the rivets looked slightly different from the others. "Hey, look at this," she called softly to Harlan, who moved closer to see. The rivet was hollow, with a barely visible seam. With trembling fingers, Greer carefully twisted it. The top came loose, revealing a tiny compartment. Inside was a micro SD card, no bigger than her fingernail. "June!" Greer called, trying to keep her voice down despite her excitement. "You need to see this!" June appeared moments later, followed by a rumpled-looking Calder. They gathered around as Harlan inserted the card into his laptop. The video was grainy but clear enough. It showed a man in work clothes methodically sawing partway through gas pipes in what appeared to be the clinic's utility room. The timestamp matched the day before the leak. "That's Marcus Wheeler," Harlan said grimly. "Blaine's maintenance supervisor. He handles all the special projects. Lulu must have recorded this when she was investigating the building before she was stolen." June breathed. "I equipped her tag with a camera for gathering evidence, but I never got the chance to check it after she disappeared." They watched in stunned silence as the video continued, showing Wheeler carefully arranging things to look undisturbed before leaving. The sabotage was clear, deliberate, and now documented. "This is it," Calder said, his voice shaking slightly. "This is what we needed. Proof that can't be explained away or buried in paperwork." Greer stroked Lulu's head, scratching behind her ears. "Good girl," she whispered. "Such a clever, brave girl." "We need to get this somewhere safe," Harlan said, already copying the files. "Multiple copies, secure locations. Once Blaine realizes we have this, he'll do whatever it takes to destroy it," June finished grimly. "And anyone who knows about it—" Greer looked around at their unlikely alliance, the suspended vet tech, the guilty veterinarian, the disillusioned fire captain, and the determined dog handler. Together, they had what they needed to expose years of corruption and deliberate endangerment of innocent lives. Lulu sighed contentedly, curling closer around her puppies as they nursed. She had done her part, detecting the danger, alerting them to the sabotage, and carrying the evidence that would bring justice. Now it was up to them to finish what she'd started. They worked through the early morning hours, making secure copies of the video and carefully documenting its discovery. Each person took responsibility for safeguarding a copy, understanding the weight of what they now carried. The rising sun painted the farmhouse windows in soft gold, a new day dawning as they strengthened their resolve to fight for truth, justice, and the safety of their community. The evening shadows stretched long across the empty parking lot as Greer left the local coffee shop. Her mind was racing with thoughts of the evidence they'd gathered against Blaine. The micro SD card felt like it weighed 100 pounds in her jacket pocket, though it was barely the size of her fingernail. She'd been careful not to let it out of her sight since they'd discovered it in Lulu's tag. The streetlights flickered to life as she walked to her car, casting pools of yellow light on the wet pavement. Something made the hair on the back of her neck stand up. An extra set of footsteps, maybe, or just the weight of being watched. She quickened her pace, fumbling for her keys. A dark SUV pulled out from between two buildings, its headlights off. Greer's heart jumped into her throat. She dove into her car, jammed the key into the ignition, and pulled out of the lot as fast as she dared. The SUV followed. "This isn't happening," she muttered, taking a sharp right turn. The SUV stayed with her, closing the distance. She grabbed her phone from the cup holder, trying to dial Harlan's number while keeping her eyes on the road. Her trembling fingers hit the wrong buttons twice before she got it right. The ring seemed to last forever. Come on, she pleaded. Greer. Harlan's voice was clear and steady. Someone's following me, she said, taking another turn. Black SUV, no plates I can see. I'm heading east on Maple. The SUV suddenly accelerated, ramming her back bumper. Greer's phone flew from her hand as she fought to keep control of the car. The bridge over Miller's Creek loomed ahead, a narrow two-lane crossing with metal guardrails that had seen better days. The SUV struck again, harder. Greer's car fishtailed, tires screaming on the wet road. She could see the creek below through the guardrail posts, black water churning in the darkness. Another hit. Her car scraped along the guardrail, sending up sparks. The metal barrier groaned, starting to give way. Greer's world tilted sideways as her car began to tip toward the water. Suddenly, blazing headlights appeared from the other direction. A familiar pickup truck screeched to a halt, blocking the bridge. Harlan leaped out, his firefighter's uniform reflecting in the chaos of headlights. The SUV's brakes squealed. It reversed sharply, then peeled away into the night. Greer's car settled back onto all four wheels, though the guardrail was permanently bent outward now. Harlan ran to her door. Greer, are you hurt? She was shaking so hard she could barely speak. I think I'm okay. He helped her out of the car, strong arms steadying her. I was already on my way to check on you, he said. Something felt wrong tonight. Thank God you were, she whispered, legs still wobbly. That wasn't an accident. They were trying to... I know. His jaw was tight with anger. This means we're getting close. Blaine's scared. They called the police, but by the time officers arrived, the SUV was long gone. While giving her statement, Greer remembered the micro SD card. She went to retrieve it from her glove box where she'd hidden it that morning. It was gone. No, she gasped, searching frantically through the compartment. No! What's wrong? Harlan asked. The card, it's gone. Someone took it. The implications hit her like a physical blow. The only people who knew where I kept it were the people we trusted. Harlan finished grimly. Back at his farmhouse, they gathered the others. June looked horrified at the news of the attack. Calder sat with his head in his hands, unusually quiet. Someone betrayed us, Greer said, pacing the worn floorboards. Someone told Blaine about the card. Calder's voice was barely audible. He looked up, face drawn with guilt. I need to tell you something. The room went silent. Even Lulu, curled up with her puppies in the corner, seemed to sense the tension. A few months ago, Calder continued, Blaine's lawyer came to me with some papers. Said they were routine property documents, insurance forms. I was behind on the clinic's rent. He implied that signing would help things go smoother. What kind of papers? June asked sharply. Calder's shoulders slumped. I didn't read them carefully enough. Later I realized they were backdated inspection certificates, liability waivers. I think I helped him cover up other incidents like the gas leak. You knew? Greer's voice cracked with disbelief. All this time, you knew what kind of man he was? I didn't know the full extent, Calder protested. I was trying to keep the clinic open, protect our jobs, our patients, by helping him hide evidence. Harlan's tone was cold. How many people could have been hurt because of those cover-ups? I was wrong, Calder said. I know that now. That's why I've been helping with the investigation, trying to make it right. Are you still helping him? Greer demanded. Did you tell him about the card? No, I would never. But his earlier deception hung heavy in the air, poisoning his denials. June stood up. I think we need to step back. We can't trust each other right now, and that makes us vulnerable. She's right, Harlan said. We need to be careful who we share information with from now on. The group that had formed such a strong alliance just days ago now looked at each other with suspicion and hurt. Greer felt the weight of it pressing down on her chest. How could they fight someone as powerful as Blaine when they couldn't even trust each other? Maybe this is what he wanted, she said quietly, to turn us against each other. It's working, June replied, gathering her things. I'll continue my research, but I'll work alone for now. One by one, they left. Only Harlan remained, standing with Greer in his kitchen as the night pressed against the windows. I'll keep watching out for you, he said. Whatever's going on, you're not alone in this. Greer nodded, grateful for his steady presence, but unable to shake the feeling that their best chance at exposing Blaine's crimes was slipping away. The card was gone. Calder's revelation had shaken their foundation, and now their careful alliance was splintering under the weight of suspicion. She watched Lulu tenderly nosing her puppies in their bed, the mother dog's protective instincts unchanged by the human drama around her. At least some bonds remained unbroken. Greer sat at her kitchen table, surrounded by stacks of building permits and inspection reports. The morning sun cast long shadows across the scattered papers as she methodically cross-referenced dates and signatures. Her coffee had gone cold hours ago, forgotten in her intense focus on the documents before her. A gentle whine from Lulu, who lay protectively near her newest puppies in the corner, drew Greer's attention. The German shepherd's intelligent eyes seemed to understand the weight of what was happening. I know, girl, Greer murmured. Something's not adding up here. She reached for another folder, this one containing emergency service records from the past 3 years. As she spread them out, a pattern began to emerge that made her stomach tighten. Every major incident at Blaine's properties had been preceded by an emergency inspection, always signed off by the same city inspector, Amos Brooke. The sound of boots on her front porch made her look up. Harlan entered, his firefighter's uniform still showing traces of smoke from an early morning call. He carried 2 fresh cups of coffee, but stopped short when he saw the expression on Greer's face. What did you find? He asked, setting the cups down. Greer held up one of the inspection forms. Does the name Amos Brooke mean anything to you? The color drained from Harlan's face. He gripped the back of a kitchen chair so hard his knuckles went white. Where did you get that? It's on every emergency inspection before an incident. The same inspector every time. Harlan, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. Harlan's voice came out rough. Amos Brooke is my father. The silence that followed felt thick enough to cut with a knife. Lulu raised her head, sensing the tension in the room. Your father, Greer whispered. But your last name? Brooke, same as his. Harlan sank into the chair, looking suddenly exhausted. We've been estranged for years. I hoped he'd retired by now. Greer spread out more documents. These signatures are recent. Last month, even. And look, every time there's been sabotage, there's been an emergency inspection by him first. The clinic, the apartment complex on Oak Street, the community center. Harlan ran a hand over his face. He's been clearing the buildings, making sure they're empty before Blaine's people can stage accidents. Greer finished. She reached across the table, touching Harlan's arm. I'm so sorry. But we have to do something. If this comes out, Harlan's voice cracked. Everything I've worked for, my position in the department, people will think I knew, that I was part of it. We can't let that stop us. Greer said firmly. People could have died, Harlan. Your own crew responds to these fires, they're at risk every time. Harlan stood abruptly, pacing the small kitchen. Lulu watched him, her tail thumping softly against the floor in solidarity. You don't understand. He's still my father. Despite everything, how do I turn him in? Greer gathered the damning papers into a neat stack. The same way you've always done your job, by putting public safety first. The man who taught me emergency response always said integrity isn't about the easy choices. He used to say the same thing. Harlan said quietly. before Blaine got to him. Before he started believing that taking bribes was just how things worked in the city. He stopped pacing, looking at the documents. How many? 23 incidents in 3 years. No deaths yet, thank God, but it's only a matter of time. The clinic was close, if Lulu hadn't warned us. Harlan's jaw tightened. Show me everything. For the next hour, they combed through the records together. The pattern became clearer with each page. Amos would conduct an emergency inspection, clear the building, and within days, an accident would occur. The timing was too perfect to be coincidence. Look at this, Greer said, pointing to a recent permit. Blaine's planning another development on River Street, the old warehouse district. There's a daycare center there, Harlan said, his voice hard. And my father just filed for an emergency inspection next week. Greer's eyes met his. Then that's where we set our trap. What are you thinking? We know their pattern now. Your father inspects, then Blaine's people move in. If we can catch them in the act. She trailed off, seeing the conflict in Harlan's face. You're talking about using my father as bait, he said. I'm talking about stopping this before someone dies. Your father made his choice, Harlan. Now you have to make yours. Harlan walked to the window, staring out at nothing. The morning sun caught the silver threading through his dark hair, making him look older than his years. Finally, he turned back. You're right. But we do this my way. No one else gets hurt. Greer nodded, relief flooding through her. We'll need help. June's connections in the K9 unit, Calder's documentation of the clinic incident. Not Calder, Harlan cut in. Not after he admitted to signing those papers for Blaine. We can't risk anyone warning them. Agreed. Greer started gathering the evidence into a laptop bag. We should move fast. If Blaine suspects we're onto them. He already does. Harlan said grimly, that attack on you wasn't random. We'll need to be careful. As if in agreement, Lulu gave a soft woof. One of her puppies tottered over to Harlan, pawing at his boot. Despite everything, he smiled, reaching down to scratch behind the tiny dog's ears. Your dad? Greer said softly. Did he ever give you a reason? For choosing this path? Harlan's smile faded. Said he was tired of being overlooked, that Blaine showed him respect, made him feel important again. He straightened up. But respect earned through corruption isn't respect at all. What do we do first? We document everything, every permit, every inspection, every accident. Then we take it to people we trust in the department. Set up surveillance on the warehouse district. He met her eyes. This ends now, whatever it costs me personally. Greer touched his arm again, feeling the tension in his muscles. You're not alone in this. No, he agreed, covering her hand with his own. I'm not. They spent the rest of the morning building their case, preparing for the confrontation they knew was coming. Outside, storm clouds gathered on the horizon, a fitting backdrop to the weight of what they had uncovered. The revelation of Amos Brooks' involvement had changed everything, raising the stakes and making their next moves all the more crucial. But as Greer watched Harlan work, his face set with determination despite the personal cost, she knew they had chosen the right path. Sometimes the hardest choices were also the most necessary. And sometimes, she realized, true integrity meant being willing to sacrifice everything to do what was right. The evening sun cast long shadows across Blaine's newest model home, a sprawling showcase property that stood empty and waiting at the end of Maple Grove Drive. Greer's hands trembled slightly as she checked her phone one last time before slipping it into her pocket. The plan they'd crafted seemed simple enough, but her years as an EMT had taught her that even the most straightforward operations could go sideways in an instant. Testing. Testing. Harlan's voice crackled through the tiny earpiece she wore. He stood in the kitchen above, adjusting the wire concealed beneath his jacket. You reading me okay down there? Loud and clear, Greer whispered back from her position in the basement. She'd chosen a spot behind some storage boxes where she could monitor the main gas line that fed into the house. The basement smelled of fresh paint and new carpet, Blaine's signature touches to make everything look perfect on the surface. Lulu lay quietly beside Harlan upstairs, her keen nose already working overtime to detect any changes in the air. They'd brought her both as an early warning system, and because her presence would help sell their cover story, a routine inspection of the property's safety features. "Vehicle approaching," Harlan murmured into his mic. "Black sedan, tinted windows. Looks like our guy." Greer's heart rate quickened. They knew Blaine's fixer would come. The carefully leaked information about a safety inspection had been too tempting to resist. The sound of car doors slamming echoed from above, followed by footsteps on the front porch. "Captain Brooke." A smooth voice carried through Greer's earpiece as Harlan opened the front door. "Wasn't expecting the fire department today." "Just a routine follow-up," Harlan replied easily. "Had some concerns about the gas systems in these new builds. Hope you don't mind if we take a look around." The fixer's laugh held no humor. "Of course not. Safety first, right? Though I have to say, bringing a dog seems a bit unusual." "She's trained in gas detection," Harlan explained, exactly as they'd rehearsed. "Standard procedure these days." Greer could hear them moving through the house above her head. Her fingers closed around the small camera in her pocket, ready to document any tampering she might witness. The basement felt colder now, and she pulled her jacket tighter around her shoulders. Suddenly, Lulu's low growl came through the earpiece, followed by the sound of quick footsteps. "Sir, this area is off limits," Harlan called out, his voice taking on an edge of authority. The basement door crashed open, flooding the stairs with light. Greer pressed herself deeper into her hiding spot as heavy footsteps descended. The fixer moved with purpose, heading straight for the main gas line. In the dim light, she could see him pull something from his pocket, a small tool that glinted dangerously. "I know you're down here," the man called out, his voice eerily calm. "And I know you're wearing a wire, Captain Brooke. Did you really think we wouldn't have this place under surveillance?" Greer's blood ran cold as she heard the distinctive sound of metal scraping against metal. The fixer was doing exactly what they'd suspected, tampering with the gas line. But this time, it wasn't just about damaging property. This was about silencing witnesses. Above, Lulu's barking became more urgent. Greer could hear Harlan struggling with someone else who must have arrived. The sound of bodies crashing against furniture carried through her earpiece. The first whiff of gas reached her nostrils, and panic clawed at her chest. The fixer had already disappeared back up the stairs, and she heard the heavy thud of the basement door being blocked shut. She was trapped. "Harlan!" she hissed into her mic, trying to keep her voice steady. "He's compromised the line. Gas is filling the basement." The sounds of struggle continued above, but now she could hear Lulu's frantic pawing at the basement door, the dog's keen nose having detected the danger below. The air was growing thick and heavy, making each breath more difficult than the last. Greer stumbled towards the stairs, her vision beginning to blur. The door wouldn't budge, something heavy had been pushed against it. Her training kicked in, and she pulled her shirt up over her nose, trying to filter what she was breathing. But she knew it was only buying her seconds. Lulu's barking reached a fever pitch, and suddenly there was a tremendous crash from above. Harlan's voice roared, "Greer! Hold on!" The basement door splintered inward as Harlan's shoulder crashed through it. He took the stairs 3 at a time, his face covered with his fire department breathing mask. "Come on!" he shouted, reaching for her with strong arms. Greer's legs felt like lead as he half-carried, half-dragged her up the stairs. They burst out of the house just as the first explosion rocked the foundation. The force threw them forward onto the lawn as windows shattered and flames erupted from the basement. Sirens wailed in the distance. Backup was already on its way. Through watering eyes, Greer saw police cars screech to a halt in front of the house. The fixer was already in handcuffs, subdued by officers who had been waiting nearby as part of their plan. And there, pulling up in his city inspector's car, was Amos Brooke, Harlan's father, his face ashen as he realized he'd walked right into their trap. "Perfect timing, Dad," Harlan said grimly as officers approached Amos. "Though I guess that's fitting, since timing those gas leaks was always your specialty, wasn't it?" Greer watched as Amos Brooks' shoulders slumped in defeat. The older man didn't resist as handcuffs were placed around his wrists. His eyes met his son's for a brief moment, filled with a mixture of shame and resignation. Lulu pressed against Greer's leg, her tail wagging slowly as emergency vehicles continued to arrive. The German shepherd's keen senses and quick thinking had once again saved lives. Greer scratched behind her ears, her hands still shaking. "Good girl," she whispered. "Good girl!" Paramedics swarmed around them, insisting on checking them both for injuries and gas exposure. As an oxygen mask was placed over her face, Greer caught Harlan's eye. He reached out and squeezed her hand, his grip strong and steady despite everything that had just happened. The last rays of sunlight caught the smoke rising from the model home, turning it golden against the darkening sky. Police officers led both the fixer and Amos toward separate patrol cars, while crime scene technicians began documenting the scene. The trap had worked, though not quite in the way they'd planned. But thanks to Lulu's warning and Harlan's quick action, they'd survived to see justice finally being served. The autumn sunlight streamed through the courthouse windows as Greer sat in the packed gallery, her heart pounding. The last 2 weeks of testimony had built to this moment. Conrad Blaine sat at the defendant's tables in his expensive suit, but even his polished appearance couldn't mask the defeat in his posture. The judge's gavel cracked through the hushed courtroom. In the matter of the state versus Conrad Blaine, this court finds the defendant guilty on all counts of criminal conspiracy, attempted murder, and willful endangerment of public safety. Greer felt Harlan's warm hand squeeze hers as the judge continued listing the charges. She glanced at June seated beside her, tears of relief gleaming in the older woman's eyes. The evidence had been overwhelming once they'd recovered the backup copy of the micro SD card June had wisely made. The footage of Blaine's fixer deliberately sabotaging gas lines, combined with Amos Brooks' dramatic testimony against his former conspirator, had sealed Blaine's fate. "The defendant will be remanded into custody pending sentencing," the judge declared. As bailiffs led Blaine away, his carefully maintained facade finally cracked. The look of pure hatred he shot toward Greer sent a chill down her spine, but she held his gaze steadily. She wouldn't show fear, not anymore. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed around their group. Harlan stepped protectively closer to Greer as cameras flashed. "Miss Langford, how does it feel to be vindicated?" One reporter called out. Before Greer could answer, June spoke up firmly. "She's a hero. She believed me when no one else would about Lulu being stolen. She trusted her instincts about the clinic sabotage. Without her courage, more people could have died in Blaine's schemes." The crowd's attention shifted as Amos Brooks emerged from the courthouse, looking years older than he had just weeks ago. His testimony had been crucial, detailing years of taking bribes to overlook Blaine's violations, signing off on fraudulent inspections, helping stage accidents to drive out resistant property owners. The price had been steep: his reputation, his career, and most painfully, the last threads of his relationship with Harlan. Harlan's jaw tightened as his father passed. Amos paused, opened his mouth as if to speak, then simply nodded once before continuing down the steps. Greer squeezed Harlan's arm gently. "You did the right thing," she whispered. "Both of you did, in the end." That evening, they gathered at June's farmhouse for a celebration that felt more like a homecoming. Lulu lounged contentedly on her bed in the corner, her 4 8-week-old puppies tumbling around her. The smallest one, a female with a white splash on her chest, kept breaking away from her siblings to toddle over to Greer. "She's chosen you," June said warmly, watching the pup climb into Greer's lap for the 3rd time. "I was hoping you'd want to adopt her. She's got her mama's good instincts." Greer's heart melted as the puppy snuggled against her. "Are you sure? These pups are Lulu's legacy. They could all be trained for rescue work like her." "Some legacies are meant for different paths," June replied. "This little girl belongs with you." I can tell. Calder arrived late, having come straight from the clinic. The past weeks had changed him too. Gone was the hesitation in his bearing, replaced by a quiet determination to make things right. "Greer," he called, making his way through the crowded living room. "Got a minute?" They stepped onto the front porch, where the evening air was crisp with approaching winter. Calder pulled an envelope from his coat pocket. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," he began, "about how I let fear cloud my judgment. About how I almost lost everything trying to protect myself instead of standing up for what's right." He handed her the envelope. "I want you to be my partner in the clinic. Full authority over operations, equal say in all decisions. You've more than earned it." Greer stared at the contract in her hands, emotion threatening to overwhelm her. "Calder, I don't know what to say." "Say yes." He smiled. "The clinic needs your leadership. I need your integrity, and frankly, the animals need your instincts." Inside, she could hear laughter and the clicking of puppy nails on hardwood floors. This moment felt surreal. Justice served, her position not just restored, but elevated. Lulu safe with her puppies, and a new future stretching before her. The screen door creaked, and Harlan joined them on the porch. Calder tactfully excused himself, leaving them alone in the gathering dusk. "Quite a day," Harlan said softly, leaning against the railing beside her. "Dad's agreed to testify in the civil suits too. Trying to make amends, I guess." "How are you holding up with all that?" He was quiet for a moment. "Better than I expected. It's like I can finally put down this weight I've been carrying. Stop trying to protect him from his own choices." He turned to face her fully. "Which leaves me free to make some new choices of my own." Greer's pulse quickened at the intensity in his gaze. "What kind of choices?" "Like asking the bravest, most remarkable woman I've ever met if she'd have dinner with me tomorrow night. Just us. No conspiracies to unravel, no crimes to solve. Just a beginning." The puppy whined from inside, padding up to scratch at the screen door. Greer laughed softly as she scooped up the little dog. "I think we've got a chaperone volunteering her services." "Is that a yes?" Harlan's smile was hopeful. "Yes." Greer replied simply, and felt the rightness of it settle in her heart. To dinner, to beginnings, to everything. The puppy wiggled happily between them as Harlan leaned down to kiss her, gentle and sure. Through the windows, Greer could see their friends raising glasses in celebration. June was showing Calder something on her phone, probably photos of Lulu's latest training session. The scene glowed with warmth and possibility. She had stood her ground when others wavered, trusted her instincts when others doubted, and fought for truth when others tried to bury it. Now she stood recognized and validated, surrounded by people who believed in her, with love blooming like hope in her heart. The road ahead was bright with promise, and for the first time in years, Greer felt truly, completely ready to walk it. The puppy yawned and snuggled closer, already claiming her place in this new chapter. Tomorrow would bring dinner with Harlan, then her first day as clinic partner, then countless moments yet to unfold. But tonight was for celebrating justice served and dreams reborn. Tonight was for savoring the sweet triumph of truth and courage rewarded at last. Thanks for watching. If any part of this story lingered with you, consider subscribing. I'll be here again tomorrow, sharing another tale that speaks to the soul.